The Extra Point with Ryan Justice is sponsored by The Phone Medic. For the best in cell phone, tablet, or laptop repairs, The Phone Medic is the only choice for you. The Phone Medic also offers gaming PCs and laptops for both gamers and everyday users. Visit one of the 3 Phone Medic locations in Amarillo, Canyon, and their new location in Lubbock today. Hello, football fans! Welcome to The Extra Point with Ryan Justice. The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. They do it in a very convincing fashion. 40-22 over the Kansas City Chiefs, preventing the three-peat. Hello, everyone. I am Ryan Justice, and as you can tell, we are not live at Old Tascosa Brewing Company like we wanted to be. Andy came down with that nasty stomach flu that's been going around. So doing the live reaction show still. I'm going to have the raffle set up at a later date and the live show set up at a later date, probably next season. But just in case some of y'all were wondering, no, we're not live tonight from Old Tascosa Brewing Company. We wanted to be. We wish we could have been out there with you guys, but Andy came down with that big stomach flu. Andy, get better soon. But joining me tonight is alumni of this show. He's joined me for a couple of shows during the preseason as well. The one and only Curtis Brown. Welcome back to The Extra Point, Curtis. Man, did you expect this out of the Super Bowl tonight?
No, that was not in my bingo card tonight. That was this is a family-friendly show, right?
I mean, somewhat.
We'll keep it there. We'll start off with it as such. That was about the butt whipping.
Yeah, well, I mean, if Sirianni can drop shit on live TV on Fox in the acceptance speech, I mean, we're good here. So, okay, you're right. It's an asshole. I mean, hands down.
Yeah, and you look at that score, and that was not indicative of what it was tonight. I think the argument could have been made that the game was over in the second quarter. You just started feeling it. You're like, okay, like for some reason it was 7-0, but it but the deficit was a lot larger.
I think that first drive where you just saw the Eagles march down on them, right. And you know they deferred and gave Philly the ball to open the game, and you just saw the offense start moving. But the offense was good. Of course, Jalen Hurts winning Super Bowl MVP. The offense played really well in this game, better than I'd seen Philly play over the last few weeks. But the real story of this game was just how much this defense manhandled Patrick Mahomes, manhandled an offensive line that had problems all year around. And this felt like the game that for all the close games that that Kansas City had played all year, that for all the close games that Kansas City had been in, the luck, the whatever you want to say about the refs, anything like that, this kind of felt like the game where the chickens started to come home to roost for the Chiefs.
You know, I think you nailed it right there. It was what you did. It was just the trenches. It was almost as if the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line found a weight room and they thought, hey, we're going to use it. Now, credit the Chiefs offensive line. You know, they've been struggling throughout the year, to say. But yeah, it was, hard. That was a story right there.
Yeah.
That front four just dominated, and as a defense, what a blessing it is to have a front four that can get after that offensive line. So you could drop 7 against someone like Patrick Mahomes. What more could you ask for from a Philadelphia perspective?
Oh, exactly. It was a great defensive game plan by Vic Fangio. You know, they beat him with 4 up front. They didn't really have to blitz a whole lot. A lot of coverage down the field to get on Hopkins and Worthy and Hollywood Brown and Travis Kelce, who were non-factors in this game tonight. The Chiefs offense just absolutely could not get going. Real quick before we get out to everything, like, share, subscribe, guys, whether you're on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, anything like that. Go like, share, subscribe. Let everyone know, guys. Let everyone know, hey, the season finale tonight, so it might be the last time you catch us for a little while. But go let everyone know. Like, share, subscribe. Get in on the Twitch. Get in on the YouTube. Get in on the Facebook. But yeah, back to the game. I mean, this was the story of the Chiefs having going up against the number one defense with that offensive line that had been giving them problems all year. You had a left guard kicking out to be your starting left tackle, going up against a team that had Sweat and Carter and Bond and all those guys that they had to account for. And it really, I think the weakness of this Chiefs team really showed up tonight.
I said this in a group chat about how this, and I think it was mentioned during the broadcast, but this was very, very similar to the Chiefs Buccaneers Super Bowl a few years back. Mm-hmm. The only difference for me was leading up to that game, everyone knew, like, I believe it was like the Chiefs left tackle out, or he maybe got injured in that AFC game, and so people were making a big deal out of it. Coming up to this one, no one really talked about it because they've been having that issue throughout the year. And so whenever you get to the biggest stage where the lights are shining, like, your flaws are going to come out more, and that's definitely what happened there. I made a comment saying how Patrick Mahomes ran the ball more horizontally rather than throwing it vertical. And that's the same thing that happened in that Chiefs-Bucks Super Bowl. And this is more the same for this one.
By the way, guys, hey, cheers. It's the Super Bowl. Go have fun. Don't well, yeah, you probably was that. What do you got in there? It's Long Island?
High quality H2O.
There you go. Well, this is high quality H2O too. So
there you go. Yes.
Anyway, and in remembrance of not being at Old Tascosa tonight, but hey, make do with what you have. So we'll be out there. We'll be out there soon, guys. Yeah. It's like you said. I think this Chiefs team just, on the other hand, too, has not been a physical team all year. Like, when you think about the type of team that just bullies people around, beats people up at the line, is physical even in pass coverage. This just has not been a Chiefs team that when you talk about them, you think downhill physicality like this Eagles team has been on both sides of the ball, whether it's been on the offense with Saquon Barkley or with this defense that has just pushed people around all year long. And on top of that, you got a brilliant defensive mind like Vic Fangio. And I think his game plan was, I think they did watch a lot of that Bucks Super Bowl and watch how physical they were with the Chiefs, and how when you get like that with Patrick Mahomes, it really throws him off his game. And I think they executed that game plan I don't want to say to the T, but they pulled a lot of pages from that tonight.
I think it was Mike Tyson that said everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, and we saw that right off the bat. Once Philly got them, or Philly realized that they could have their way with them, it was almost as if the Chiefs didn't know what to do. No. And it, like I said before, it was quite evident. He, Mahomes was running for his life. How many times did he get sacked? Like 6 or 7? Some absurd number.
6 sacks.
Yeah.
All night. I mean, one shy of tying the Super Bowl record.
And those are sacks. That doesn't include like pressures.
Nope.
He was just running.
Or hurries.
Yeah. And man, he just got abused tonight. And those gifts that he probably gave his offensive line for Christmas, he probably needs to get those back.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, yeah. I'd be asking for him back.
Yeah, you can earn them back, go through OTAs and get better. But other than that, like, I'm gonna hold on to these gifts because he didn't do any favors.
No, I think there's going to be wholesale changes on this team, especially along the offensive line going forward.
Yes.
It's like, I think Nick Wright pointed it out going into the Texans game. He said that the Chiefs really play 2-game seasons where it starts in the AFC Championship, and if they go 0-1, there's wholesale changes all along the team. And if they go 1-1, then they figure out exactly where they failed and make changes all along that line, all along that part of the ball. And I think this offensive line is going to get completely revamped over the offseason, which starts in about a month. So in about a month, the new league year will be here, and free agency, and of course, there's going to be a lot of moves, I think, in the next few weeks, especially before the combine gets going. We're going to see some coaching moves be made. I would imagine you're going to see a new offensive line coach for the Chiefs. I think you're definitely gonna be seeing a lot of new faces along that offensive line. I believe it's Trey Smith, who's like their star guard, is going to be a free agent this year, and he's going to be one of the hotter free agents on the market and one of the higher paid free agents on the market. So they got to figure out something to do with him, whether or not he's an anchor piece of that line. I think they got to do something with Jawan Taylor. He has caused them problems for at least the last 2 years.
Yeah, like just from what I'm seeing, from what I saw throughout the season, and especially now, like you're right, think changes have to be made on the offensive line first and foremost. Forget everything else. I'm a firm believer that if you can have all the skill players, and this was evident tonight, you can have the skill players, but if you don't have the 5 people blocking it, it's all for naught. And so,
I mean, look what happened to Houston this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you never realize the importance of an offensive line until you have nights like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate for the Chiefs. It was on the biggest stage of them all.
Yeah.
So,
no, I agree. And I mean, I think I said this in one of our group chats too. The Chiefs, I mean, that's part of the double-edged sword of playing close games like this. And the way that they've played all year long. I mean, 11 of their games were one-score games and coming down to the wire, and a lot of them were just dumb luck that they won, whether it was just they were able to operate better than other teams, were not necessarily something they called or something they did on the field. And I think it was, hey, eventually that kind of stuff gets it. I know like the cliche is, hey, the good teams are the ones that win close games. Yeah, but the good teams are also the ones that will go out and not get in a shootout with a team like Carolina, or let a team like the Saints hang around until the fourth quarter. They're the teams that will go out there and really just dominate those kind of teams. And I get there was injuries, but I mean, there's injuries all across the league. They needed to have games this season. And I'd said this about my team. They needed to have games this season where they just completely took control they just completely took control of people. I mean, even the Cleveland game that they played, that was closer than it needed to be.
Yeah, they never really had a blowout game this year. Then they said it was like 13 one-score games.
Yeah, I think there was 11. I know 11 in the regular season, and then each game this postseason has been a one-score game, with the exception of the one tonight.
Yeah, it's just unreal. You just have to, like you said, it just had to come to a point where like the dam had to break.
Well, and the dam broke at the offensive line, like you said.
Yeah.
If you're going to be in those if that's the way you're going to play, if that's the way you're gonna go about handling your business, is by playing in these close games and keeping it tight and keeping them nail biters, you need the offensive line to be able to hold up and protect, not just to keep your quarterback upright, but to be able to run the ball so you can control the clock. And when you have these type of problems and you keep winning these games, I mean, it reminded me a lot of the Vikings a couple of years ago, where where every game, with the exception of maybe 2 that season, were just one-score games, and they just kept pulling them out. And it was like that for the Chiefs. It's just the coin fell on their side each and every time.
Yeah, like they just got so many breaks, and that's not including like people talking about the officials. Not even that, but it was just
I mean, you think about it. They began their first game winning by a toe, literally winning by a toe, and then they get the Broncos. They get a wonky. I mean, this probably falls under the refs thing, but if they hadn't had that wonky pass interference call against the Bengals, they'd have lost that game too. And then you look at the Broncos game. The Broncos were driving down to win that game, and had it not been for a blocked field goal, that would have been another loss for them. I mean, the Raiders were driving down to win that game, and had it not been for just inexperience on the offensive line and that botched snap, they probably would have won that too. And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, yeah, it's like I said, you get to a point where the dumb luck just kind of runs out.
Looking back at their schedule, like, I mean, I see 2 games that they won by more than one possession, and it was at home against the Saints, and we know how the Saints were this season. And then the 49ers, where they had an unexpected down year. But
Yeah.
every other game that they won, like besides the Cleveland game, but just I think maybe the Steelers too. The
Yeah.
net, but other than that, it was just
It was luck.
yeah, like
I mean, they were that's
good
the
for
thing.
them, that they called tails 12 times in a row, or they had the correct call, but just I
We'll
don't
dive,
get yeah.
we'll dive more into this Chiefs Eagles game as we go along with the show. Let's start off with let's go into hot topics here tonight. We had the MVP, we had the not the MVP, we had the NFL awards on Thursday, and some of the more notable ones that came from it was Josh Allen winning the MVP, Saquon Barkley winning the Offensive Player of the Year. I got the extra point awards coming tonight, but I mean, what are your thoughts on Josh Allen winning the MVP?
You know, I don't have a problem with it because I feel like this MVP specific award more times than not will go to a quarterback, in my opinion. Now I'm not going back into history and looking to see who's won these awards, but I feel like it's a quarterback, like it's a quarterback award. Now, unless you do something amazing as a non-quarterback, like Saquon did this year, but I think ultimately I'm okay with him winning it. I'm okay with it. And it's kind of weird that we have an MVP and an offensive player of the year. That's a little weird, in my opinion. But I'm glad Saquon got his recognition because he sure as hell deserved it this season with just his performance game in, game out. I feel like his season though was more memorable than
Mm. I I don't know. I mean, like I get offensive player of the year and defensive player of the year because there are some guys who on offense were were outstanding,
right.
and but
I'm with you.
I feel like the MVP has turned into a quarterback award because I mean, and I started my problems with the MVP back when I felt like it should have been JJ Watt who scored five total touchdowns in a season, two of them on offense, or three of them on offense, two of them on defense, and one of them was an 80-yard pick six, like for a defensive lineman, but it went
Yeah.
to Aaron Rodgers for some reason. Um, I don't think Josh Allen did enough to win MVP. I think he had some MVP moments, but there were some games like I mean, even against Houston, he had a game where he only completed 9 passes and looked awful. And you had some times coming down the stretch and then into the postseason where bad Josh Allen came back.
Right.
And I mean, your team, there's been discussions. I know we've had the discussion in our group chat. Like, is McDermott the problem? When you've got issues at your quarterback, and you're questioning, you're on a team where hey, they're questioning the head coach and they just can't seem to get over the hump. That's I mean that's I don't know if that's something if that's enough for me to put Josh Allen over like Lamar Jackson and Saquon Barkley. I think if Burrow would have gotten into the playoffs, he would have been MVP.
Yeah,
Even if
definitely.
he lost first round, I think he would have been MVP.
Definitely. Yeah. I think Joe Burrow is that dude.
Yeah.
And so, and I think we have plenty of respect for Joe. I don't know. I feel like you touch base on Joe Burrow. I feel like to an extent, he's more. Maybe it's not him. I feel like people try to make Josh Allen like he's like this superhero,
Mm.
like like the
The
NFL,
graphics were even looking like that.
like the NFL powers that be are just willing, just doing everything they can to show everyone, hey, no, he's really a superstar. Look, like
Yeah.
he's amazing, and but I feel like Joe Burrow is already that dude. Now, had he made the playoffs, yeah, I think he wins that award.
Well, he's been in a Super Bowl. He's already done something that Josh Allen has not done, and he's
Right.
been in a Super Bowl.
Hell, he won in Kansas City in the playoffs. Like
Come from behind too
yeah,
at
at Arrowhead.
Arrowhead,
So
and
yeah,
like I mean, I got some Joe Burrow stuff a little bit later on in the show, but I mean, you'll see who I thought should have been MVP later on in the show. But
Okay.
I'm just he had a good season, probably one of the best seasons that I've seen Josh Allen have. Um,
I
but
think this is his best season that he's had.
yeah, you might be right too.
Yeah.
That might be his best season. I have to go back and like double check and look. Definitely one of his best seasons, and it came from him not having to feel like he needed to force feed the ball to one guy.
Yeah.
I really liked what Joe Brady was doing on offense. I really liked what he had done, and I liked the fact that they did kind of not make Josh Allen the center of their run scheme and
Yeah.
let James Cook do his thing. But I mean, with the story that Saquon Barkley has, sorry man, I just choked on myself for a minute there.
All right.
With the story that Saquon Barkley has from even beginning in the offseason, where my Factory of Sadness award for the year went to the New York Giants for
Well deserved.
everything. Yeah, exactly. For everything they did leading that led to this. And this is just the final nail in the coffin for that. I just think with the year, I don't think it should take Saquon Barkley having to set or even come close to setting the all-time rushing record in a single season for him to even sniff the MVP.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm assuming if the awards were reversed, where Saquon got the MVP and Josh Allen won Offensive Player of the Year, I'm assuming you'd be okay with that.
I don't know if that. I mean, okay with Saquon winning MVP.
Yeah.
You'll see who I thought was Offensive Player of the Year, who I
Okay.
thought would have been Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
I felt like Josh Allen, because Burrow didn't make the playoffs, and I don't think that's like a requirement to
Yeah.
be considered for the MVP. I don't think it should be, at least. But I would have had him third. But
Okay.
I would have had him third, behind Saquon and the other person I have for Offensive Player of the Year. So, but we'll dive into that. We'll see how much further that goes on. I agree. Barkley shouldn't have been MVP tonight because I think the Chiefs kind of honed in on him, and that's what allowed Jalen Hurts to do his thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He deserved Super Bowl MVP tonight. I think a case could have been made for one of the defensive guys too. But we'll look at that. We'll see how this offseason plays out. Speaking of offseason, the last offseason hire that needs to be made, I think it's going to end up being made this week. News came out today. Kellen Moore expected to become the Saints head coach. They're the last opening available. They were waiting until after the Super Bowl to get with Kellen Moore. It's kind of been tossed around that they weren't a place that people really wanted to go because of the cap situation and because of the GM. So he's going to be there with Derek Carr. I think the Saints are like $50 million over the cap right now. They always make it work somehow.
Yeah.
And Derek Carr's saying he doesn't want to take a pay cut. We'll see what Kellen Moore brings to New Orleans.
I'm excited for the hire. I felt like whenever he was with the Cowboys, you at least in my opinion, it seemed like he was going to be a head coach in the NFL one day. So from seeing where he's been at Dallas and seeing him, fortunately go to Philadelphia, but now going to the Saints. I mean, I'm happy for him because these NFL head coaching jobs, there's only 32 of them out there, and if you really want one, you'll take what you can get, But so it'll be interesting to see how he does, how it goes over there, because I think I wonder how he's going to do the play calling. Like, who's he going to hire? Is he going to do the play calling? We don't know yet.
With the situation that the Saints are in, though, does this feel like it's almost too much of an uphill battle? Because the Saints the Saints had fired their head coach in season. So they had an early head start on this. And now they're the last ones to make the hire. And so they had their pick. They could have figured out a way to get with Ben Johnson. I think Aaron Glenn was very strongly considered to go to the Saints. And one of the reports that were coming out was people really weren't liking the cap situation or the GM situation that the Saints were in.
Well, here's my thing. I mean, someone's got to coach the team. And Kellen Moore saw this opportunity, and he He coming off of a Super Bowl and their offense and Philly's offense being as good as it was with Saquon, Jay, all them making it work. I don't know if they're expecting the same thing in New Orleans because that's not going to happen.
No,
I think he can make it work. I think based on what they have currently, I think he can make it work given the situation. But there's a long time from right now till late August, early September when the next season starts.
I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna have to draft smart. They're
Oh, for
definitely
sure,
gonna have to
yeah.
draft smart.
In that cap situation, oh yeah, they better hit it. They better hit every draft hit.
Yep.
Excuse
They
my
always
language.
seem to make it work. That's the thing is that the Saints, I think that last year they were like 70 million over, so it's a $20 million improvement from year to year. But this kicking that Drew Brees contract down the road so far has been what's been getting them. This one came out today as well. Lots of news, of course, obviously come out during the Super Bowl. But one of them he made it official himself. Deebo Samuel officially requests a trade from the San Francisco 49ers. What do you make of this, and what are we thinking some good landing spots for him might be?
You know, uh, I find it interesting, like in different sports leagues, when players request trades, it's treated differently. Whereas, like in the NBA, someone will request a trade, and then they make it a point, like they have a specific spot they want to go to, and then somehow they make it happen. Whereas in the NFL, it really doesn't run like that. Like I can imagine the 49ers front office when they see Deebo Samuel walk through that door and he hands them like the official trade request. I'm sure they took that piece of paper, looked at it, and said, "Okay, thank you." Open up the filing cabinet and drop the paper in there and close it in front of them. I don't like it. I don't have a problem with him requesting the trade. To me, where's he gonna go? Like, and what are teams willing to give up for him? I don't know what the market is for.
I mean, well, he's been in the league a while. I don't think anyone's given up a first for Deebo Samuel. I don't think anyone's going to give up a first for him unless the Niners are trying to play ball and ask for a first for Deebo Samuel. John Lynch doesn't strike me as that kind of guy though.
Yeah,
And I think this might make Brandon Ayuk happy because he's going to end up being the number one guy on the team. But Deebo, I mean, there's plenty of places that I think he's been kind of linked to. Obviously, whenever you hear something like this, the fan bases start doing their start putting together their Madden trades. Um,
yeah,
but there's a couple of places that have a number one wide receiver that need help, that could use another guy. I mean, I look at Houston could take him. I could see Dallas maybe if they want to pair him with CeeDee Lamb, especially if they're going to be kind of doing some of the things with Brian Schottenheimer. If I'm thinking about teams right now, I mean, unfortunately, Kansas City could use him, and
yeah.
I could see Andy Reid doing some things with him. I mean, but you've also got other guys that are going to be out there on the market too. T. Higgins. I think Chris Godwin's going to be available. There's been rumors around DK Metcalf getting traded. So
If if I were the 49ers, I would send him to the AFC. And if they had a quarterback, which hold on, excuse me.
bless you.
Thank you. If they had a quarterback, because I don't know what their quarterback situation is now, I think I think Pittsburgh wouldn't be a bad landing spot for him.
Well,
I
Pittsburgh's not looking to bring back either Fields or Russell Wilson.
That's the thing. Like, if they had a better QB situation, that wouldn't be a bad landing spot. In fact, I think he would do well in Pittsburgh. But if I were the 49ers, I would trade him out. Hell, maybe even the Patriots.
Yeah. I mean, the Patriots will have the cap space. That's the thing is I was talking about this last week, or I was talking about this on Wednesday. They're going to have, I mean, I've seen anywhere between over 100 to 130 million dollars in cap space, and they've got top tier picks. But the thing is that the wide receiver pool in this year's draft is pretty deep too.
True.
So,
Yeah.
and
That's
I
very
think
true.
who is it? The guy from Ohio State has been linked to
Judkins.
a lot of people. No, Igbuka, I
Okay.
think, has been soaring up. Has been named. I don't think a lot of people we're talking about too. But yeah, I mean, a lot of guys. There's a lot of receivers out there that a lot of people are talking about with this draft. So I mean, guys like T. Higgins available. I mean, like I said, I think Chris Godwin's available too. Stephon Diggs is going to be out there. I know those guys are coming off injury,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think the wide receiver market, I think much like last year's running back market in free agency is going to be very interesting. I think you're going to see some big names get moved to different places once you get to the wide receivers.
Yeah. Um, I'm not. I haven't dug too deep into the free agency yet, who's out there. But if you're telling me like T. Higgins, Stephon Diggs probably, or at least be on the trade market.
Diggs will be a free agent.
Okay.
Higgins played on the franchise tag, so he will be a free agent.
Okay.
The guys that I think that I believe have seen Devontae Adams and the Jets are expected to part ways.
Okay.
I believe the guys that are going to be on the trade block will be. I've heard DK Metcalf because Jackson Smith and Jigba's kind of becoming the focal point of that offense up there in Seattle. And then, of course, today, Deebo Samuel requesting the trade. Let me double check Chris Godwin's free agency, but I believe he's a free agent after this season. I think a lot of people are saying yes. So Chris Godwin, I believe, will be a free agent this year. So he's going to be out there. I know he's coming off the ACL. Diggs, I believe, is going to be expected to sign back with Houston on kind of a 1-year deal, but they got to do it by this time next weekend. So Cooper Kupp also on the trade block.
Yes.
Tutu Atwell, I believe, is also a free agent. So, like I said, the both in the draft and in the market is going to be very saturated for wide receivers. It's going to be deep.
I see Keenan Allen's on the trade market, but it looks like he's on the wrong side of 30 years old. So I don't know what he'll get out of it. But yeah, not just the free agency for receivers, but as you mentioned, this draft. It's going to be very interesting how it goes when it comes to
there's going to be plenty of wide receiver needy teams. I would imagine.
Sure.
I mean, so we'll keep an eye on that one. The other piece of news that came out today: the Jets and Aaron Rodgers are officially getting a divorce. Does this make you sad?
No, please don't. That can't be real. No. Why would they divorce? It just felt like this was coming. It's almost like I guess this is a common. I mean, not common, but it's looks like the same trajectory as Brett Favre's career. It really does.
He had more success though, because I think he got the Jets to the playoffs when he was there.
That's true. That's true.
And then he went to the Vikings and was a couple plays away from the Super Bowl. I don't see Aaron Rodgers doing that.
Yeah. So, where would he go? I don't know I wouldn't know any landing spots for him.
Here's the thing: if you're
Vegas, he's almost on the wrong side of 40 if he's not there already.
He will be. He will be by the time the season starts next year. I mean, Here's the thing: if you're Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly in Vegas, do you bring him to the Raiders and possibly bring back Devontae Adams? Does he go to somewhere?
Like a rental.
Yeah, well, he's going to be a rental. There's no way any team is going to, unless he works whatever voodoo word salad that he does on teams and convinces them that he can still play at the level that he's played at when he hasn't played at that in the last 4 years. He's going to be a rental. He's got to be a rental.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think the Raiders are like the only place I could see him going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of any other openings or
the
potential
Vikings,
openings.
Darnold's a free agent too, so I mean, he could follow that Brett Favre trajectory and go play for the Vikings. I don't know how happy Minnesota fans would be about that. They ain't changing offensive coordinators though. Kevin O'Connell's not going to put up with the stuff that he brings.
But where could he go that he'd be a starter?
I mean, I think Minnesota. I'm not gonna lie. If you can get, because he had some decent games down the stretch.
Yeah.
The thought of him and Justin Jefferson isn't bad. If you can squeeze and Kevin O'Connell turned Sam Darnold around.
Ryan, I think if he's going to be a starter, that's the only place he could go is
Or the
Minnesota.
Raiders. Minnesota or the Raiders.
Yeah.
The Raiders don't have a whole lot of cap space, though. I think they got like $20 million in cap space. I mean, it'll get readjusted and things like that once we get to the start of the new league year. But realistically, where he could go and be a starter, I think those are the only two places.
Yeah, I'm just doing just quick math, thinking which team has which QB, and those are the only two.
Unless he wants to go take a cheap contract in Cleveland.
In Cleveland,
they aren't going to have a whole lot. I mean, I think they're going to find a way to get off of Deshaun Watson. That's going to take some lingering, but we'll see where Aaron Rodgers goes, or he may just retire. Hopefully, he just retires. Please just retire.
Hopefully, he told someone prior to that.
He's got to go into the darkness first. So
yes,
we'll get some more. That'll do it for the hot topics. We'll react to the game a little bit more. Again, guys, just want to say thank you to our sponsor real quick, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock.
The Extra Point with Ryan Justice is sponsored by the Phone Medic. For the best in cell phone, tablet, or laptop repairs, the Phone Medic is the only choice for you. The Phone Medic also offers gaming PCs and laptops for both gamers and everyday users. Visit one of the 3 Phone Medic locations in Amarillo, Canyon, and their new location in Lubbock today.
Back here on the Extra Point. So game reaction. Again, the Eagles are your Super Bowl 59 champions. They open as early favorites, of course, next year for the Super Bowl to go back. Looking at this Eagles season, because they started 2-2, you had Nick Sirianni arguing with the fans. A lot of people were calling for Nick Sirianni's job at certain points in the season. And then just something clicked for these Eagles, and I can't quite put my finger on if it was Sirianni or if it was just changing the culture of this team, because there were so many times during this season where it looked like, oh man, the Eagles are about to fall apart again.
Yeah, well, let me just go on record and say I was one of those people that wanted Nick Sirianni gone. I just coming off, there were 2-2 going in the bye week, I believe, and you just see the lead up from last season, how the Eagles just crumbled.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that bled over a little bit into this year and this season. That's why I was like, man, he's got to go. He's the problem. He made it to that Super Bowl with 2 great coordinators, and they both left. And then
Brian Johnson last year.
Yeah, and you saw what happened to them last year. And so the beginning of the season, I thought this is more of the same. He's got to go. But then they only lost 1 game after that bye week. And, me being the Cowboy fan, I'm petty. So I'm like, I hope he leaves. But I can't help but, give him credit, because something happened during that bye week. And I don't know if they had a kumbaya moment, but they made the necessary changes, and now they're holding up that trophy.
Well, and I think even for Cowboys fans, I know he was kind of being groomed to be the head coach, but even for Cowboys fans, you're sitting there looking at Kellen Moore going, really? I mean, you saw he had some moments both in LA and in Dallas, where there were some questionable plays that he called, some questionable decisions, some questionable strategies that he brought to the game plan and to the offense. And some of them where it's just like, F it, I'm airing the ball out, and it ended up costing them some games.
Yeah.
So
I think also them realizing, oh wait, we have Saquon Barkley here. And I want to say it was that very first game, the Brazil game, where Saquon just made it happen. He brought it home.
Yep.
And that's maybe, I don't think it was at that point, but it must have been in that bye week. They thought, hey, let's look at this film again, and they saw him put it in that work, and they thought, okay, what he does, then let's focus on that.
The theme all year for the Eagles for me has been they go where Saquon goes. Wherever Saquon goes, that's where the Eagles are. If Saquon's doing bad, usually the Eagles aren't doing great. And there weren't very many games this year where Saquon was just not doing well at all. And I mean, he won our biggest addition award last week, and he had to be the biggest addition to this team because last year they didn't really have a running game. I believe it was Gainwell and Swift,
Right.
maybe Miles Sanders too. This was a team that, there we go. What you got there, huh? There you go. Hey, Hunter Dillon, how's it going, sir? But yeah, I mean, it was a team that just part of that was the reason they crumpled. It was they never had a run game. They couldn't get the run game going, and now that offense and that entire all that momentum just seemingly ran through Saquon. And then when he wasn't really getting it going on the ground in a game like tonight, they were finally able to pick it up.
Yeah. And, with Saquon being as great as he was this season, it took so much pressure off of Jalen Hurts. And so when he had to make a play, it was like, oh, wait, I do have Saquon, but I also have these really good receivers, that I can use. And, so, I think Saquon just opened everything up. It was how do I say it? Like, he took so much pressure off that offense where he was like, get on my back. I will take you to the promised land. And if something happens, Jalen Hurts can make a play or make plays. And so this game, he made the plays necessary because obviously Kansas City said Saquon Barkley will not beat us. And he did not beat them.
No, he did.
But you know who did? Jalen Hurts. Mm-hmm. And that defensive line. But Jalen Hurts did his thing too. He did his fair share. If it was 3rd and 8, they needed 8 yards, he'd get 10 plus or just whatever he could to move the sticks. And that's all you really need in games like this. You don't have to ball out and do all the fancy, sexy stats. Move the ball, score points. That's all you got to do in these games.
I mean, he still ended up with almost 100 all-purpose yards because he carried the ball 25 times for 57 yards. His average wasn't great. In fact, they used the legs of Jalen Hurts a lot more than they did Saquon Barkley. But he had 6 catches for 40 yards, and I think that was one of the things that made the difference was they were able to utilize him in the passing game a lot more.
Yeah, like Kansas City just made that point. Like you're not going to run the ball on us. So they had to manufacture catches for it, and they did that. And then Jalen Hurts would make a play where he would gash him on the ground. To I guess you could say, I don't want to say keep them honest, but to keep them at bay, to keep them guessing. And like I said, in Super Bowls, you don't need to have the fancy stats. All you gotta do is, make the right plays.
Yeah, you got to execute. You got to execute in these situations and in these games.
Don't do anything stupid.
Yeah, don't do anything stupid. Don't try to get out of what your identity is. Don't try and do things that are kind of out of your depth. If you start getting too cute, that's usually when you start losing the game.
Right.
And I think the Eagles did that. They, I knew that this was going to be a game where good old fashioned, old school physical defense was going to be something that the Eagles had to rely on. But the run game for both teams was going to be something that I thought was really going to be a little bit more prevalent. Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco were missing from this game. 3 carries, 9 yards. Pacheco had 3 carries, 7 yards. The Chiefs had 49 yards total. I mean, they shut down.
Right. I don't even remember them saying Kareem Hunt's name. I mean,
no, I don't either.
I don't remember him saying his name one time.
I mean, the Chiefs didn't even pass midfield until 2 minutes left in the third quarter.
This also reminded me from the college side. I told you, as you know, I follow college a bit also. A few years back, there was the national championship game was between LSU and Alabama, coincidentally at the Superdome. Mm-hmm. And LSU, they didn't pass midfield to about, I want to say like 5 minutes or less in the fourth quarter. And so that's kind of what I was noticing in this game as well. That not only were the Eagles defensive line was just trashing the Chiefs O-line, but it was just like the Chiefs couldn't get anything going.
Nope.
And if Yeah, I just noticed like they're on the right side of the screen a lot more. Like they're not really moving the ball or the left, depending on what quarter it was. Like they're not really moving it. And I just don't know. Like how do I
They
say?
got to, they got to fix this O line. I thought I did see something funny. There was a
Yeah,
ton of great memes that came
ultimately,
out tonight.
yeah,
I was seeing someone trying to talk crap on Texans fans, talking about if CJ Stroud's so great, why is Mahomes in the Super Bowl with this? And it showed him getting sacked, and we said, well, unfortunately for CJ Stroud, like Mahomes mid sack, that was a clean pocket for CJ this year.
uh,
I mean, it probably was for Mahomes, but he likes to dance around and stuff like that. And the Eagles finally said they weren't going to let that happen. There were some hits on Mahomes tonight. Some with
yeah,
that I thought would have gotten called.
he got took to the woodshed tonight, and it it very rarely you see him first of all like get hit, but you very very rarely see him get hit like that.
Yep.
And that I think it was his last turnover
Yep.
where he was about to chunk it and someone got his arm and then he got
That
blasted
strip
into the
sack.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
and
that should have been, now, honestly, that one should have been a penalty.
for sure, yeah.
That one
But
was contact to the head.
you just don't see that from him,
No.
and maybe that like showcases like just how good he is. But for the Eagles to do that to him, it raised some eyebrows.
Yep.
Even like yeah, because you
Yep.
just don't see it.
Well, we'll recap once more the Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl win. Again, the Chiefs get dominated by Philadelphia, 40-22. Jalen Hurts, your Super Bowl MVP of the game. Buy or sell is up next, guys. And for you guys watching on the stream, me and Curtis I'm gonna throw some takes at Curtis, and we're gonna determine whether or not we are buying or selling these takes right here on the season finale. We want you guys to chime in on the chat too, whether or not you guys are buying or selling, or even just to shout out your team. Let us know. We love hearing the comments. We love showing them up here on your screen, whatever device you guys are watching on. But yeah, let us know, buy or sell, whatever takes we are throwing at you guys, especially there we go, Hunter. Refs defeated. Yeah, they were under that. I said they were under a microscope tonight with how they were calling some things. You had those two bad calls in the first quarter, and then it was a really, really decently called game after that. But buy or sell. So first up on buy or sell, we mentioned it a little bit earlier with the wide receiver market. But buy or sell, the Bengals this offseason can keep the big three of Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow together.
I don't know their cap situation, but I think ultimately, I think they can keep the big three. I would buy that. I would buy that. Um, I can't, like I said, I can't go into contracts and cap space, but I like to think that they'll keep it together. Well, actually, hold on. Before I say that, can I retract my buy?
Sure.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
we had
retract.
like a 30-second return policy. I just made that up.
Oh, okay. Well. With that being said, you know what? Given how this wide receiver class is, I wouldn't be surprised if they let T. Higgins walk. If they could find the right receiver to complement Chase and Burrow, and if they can identify them early, I wouldn't be surprised if they let Higgins walk.
Well, I think they have him. I think they have Yoshivas, who's there. And I'll sell. I get your point about the wide receiver market, but I'll sell not necessarily because of the wide receiver market being so deep.
Yeah,
The owners of this team are notoriously cheap.
right.
I believe it was like there was some like basic amenities that you would think would be in a practice facility that were not in that practice facility for the Bengals, and they had to like beg the owners. If you remember, there was that survey that came out this past off season about grading the team's facilities, and players were grading how the team treated them. And I think the Bengals, surprisingly, with all the success that they were having, were way low on the list. Like I believe almost at an F, just because the owners were so cheap and they're notoriously stingy when it comes to paying players. I think that's why you had someone like Joe Burrow, who this week on like Radio Row was openly advocating for this team to open up the wallet and spend some money.
I want to say, at least after a few years back, that they didn't even have their own indoor practice facility. They had to go to Cincinnati to use theirs.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I've heard of that their ownership is pretty cheap, and so that doesn't surprise me at all. So yeah, I see where you're coming from. Where why pay someone? I don't know how much T Higgins is making. Let's just say $10 million. Like why pay someone $10 million a year when you can find someone that'll do the same for $5 million? And I think that sounds like a Cincinnati Bengal thing to do, given their ownership.
With the before adjustments are made, the total salary cap range for 2025 is expected to be 275 to 280 million. And of course, after you factor in guys who are already under contract and everything for the team that are already there, the Bengals are expected to have $47.6 million in cap space. I would imagine after adjustments, if the cap goes up, that's going to end up being closer to 50. Yeah. So they have money on hand to be able to get this done. Franchise tagging him is going to be more expensive than signing him. I wouldn't tag him. No, not again.
No. I'd rather let him walk. And I just go back to this college draft class coming in,
Well, and again, they already had a rookie on roster this year that was productive in Yoshi. Yeah. And I could see them going, look, we like T. Higgins, but not at that price when we already got a rookie here that could basically be his replacement. So, yeah. Next up, a buy or sell. Back to the Super Bowl with the loss tonight. Buy or sell. This is the beginning of the Chiefs' decline.
I want to buy it simply because of the quarterbacks that are in that conference. I'm hesitant on buying it, but I think ultimately I would buy it because you think about it, this is the first, like this. Obviously, they're trying to win three in a row, but this is now
4 and 5 years.
Yeah, 4 and 5 years. I mean, we said I'm just going to say it. I think we're going to start to see a decline, not because the Chiefs are going to start becoming awful or worse, but I do think ultimately the competition in the conference is going to rise up.
I mean, the competition in the division is going to get better.
Yeah.
Because now you've got Ladd McConkey and Justin Herbert together with Greg Roman as their play caller, and the Chargers had their moments this year, but they weren't bad.
They were respectable.
Yeah, they were respectable. So were the Broncos, because now you've got Bo Nix, who at times looked like he could have won Rookie of the Year. I mean, the Broncos made the playoffs too. This is the first time in, I think, a long time that you had two teams from the West that made the playoffs. Granted, the Broncos got killed in the playoffs, but the fact with their cap situation and where that team was and what Sean Payton was able to do with that team, the fact that they were able to come back and make the playoffs this year, I know they're not in the greatest cap situation next year either, but there's some young guys coming in, and I feel like Sean Payton can get them right. I mean, you have the defensive player of the year on that team. So
I'm not saying that the Chiefs are going to go 8-9 next season. I'm not saying that. I wouldn't be surprised if they still win the division. I guess when I say when they're declining is, are they going to make the AFC Championship game next season? I don't know.
Could they be in the wild card again?
If they don't, or maybe I should say this: when I say declining, how about not playing a playoff game at Arrowhead?
Yeah.
I think, to me, right there, that might signify a decline.
Yeah.
Because for these past few seasons, everything seems like it's been going through Arrowhead, besides the COVID year, I think. But
I think the COVID year they did too.
That I don't recall.
No. Baltimore was number one that year. I remember that. but Chiefs were 2 because I think that was before. No, that was the first year they expanded.
Yeah. Well, nevertheless, I think the decline will be like they'll have to go on the road on a playoff game,
like they did last year. Yeah, I think unless they make, I think they're going to try and make some wholesale changes on the offensive line. I could buy this, the beginning of it at least.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not talking 8 and 9. I'm not nothing like that. Not like.
Every team goes into cycles, and sometimes that cycle into going into like a rebuild, a full blown rebuild, it takes some time. I don't think the Chiefs are going away, but I definitely don't think we're going to be looking at the Chiefs as this unstoppable, inevitable force that they have been for the last 5 years.
It might be like the Patriots were like, they may stumble in the divisional round. That one season where like, oh, they didn't make it to the conference championship game.
Yeah.
Like I guess I'm thinking of Tom Brady's last season. When they lost, was it Tennessee? I think. It don't matter, or the Ravens. It don't matter. Like, but they had a season.
I was going to say, their last season with the Patriots or his last season ever?
With the Patriots.
With the Patriots, I want to say that was no, they lost to Tennessee.
Bowl, right?
Yeah, Brady was still with the Patriots. The last season, that may have been his last season. That may have been
the Super Bowl last season.
No, they didn't.
Because I think that was the Vrabel-led Titans.
That was the
nevertheless.
I'm going to cut off certain body parts to beat you. See?
Yes. But I just no 8 and 9 season. It's more of like, it's going to be a
10 and 7, 11
a divisional game on the road.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'll buy that one as well. Next up, buy or sell. The Hall of Fame class was announced this past Thursday as well. Who didn't make the cut? Well, one, Eli Manning. Was Eli Manning snubbed for not making the Hall of Fame?
Not this season, I don't think. I mean, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's won 2 Super Bowls, right? He'll be in the Hall of Fame. I just don't think it would have needed him this year. I'm thinking of who made the Hall of Fame. It was Larry Allen. No,
Jared Allen. Sterling Sharp.
Eric Allen?
Yeah, Eric Allen, I believe.
And who was the other one?
I know some of them weren't there. I couldn't remember them all. But it was Eli's first year on the ballot.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's got as many rings as his brother. He threw for 6,000 yards in a season when you combine playoffs and the regular season. I mean,
I just felt like he had some stinkers during
during the last part of his career.
Yeah, that's why I'm not saying he was first ballot.
Because it was either okay.
Antonio Gates. That's what it was.
Yes.
Antonio Gates.
Yeah, it was. How could we forget Antonio Gates? Sorry, Antonio Gates.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
It was either like the Giants were terrible, or if they made it into the playoffs, Eli Manning unlocked himself. Like it was just, it was like that. I mean, yeah, I'll sell. I don't think it was snubbed. I think he might be a second. I don't know. The Hall of Fame ballot for next year looked pretty good too.
Oh yeah, I saw that list. I was trying to pull it up right now. I know Drew Brees is on that list.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's a shoe-in.
Yeah. That's a gimme.
Larry Fitzgerald, Jason Witten, Frank Gore, Phillip Rivers. Eli Manning might not get in next year. He might have to wait
and then of course you got the guys who could get in after that.
Oh my Lord have mercy.
Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, next year, either next year or the year after that might be J.J. Watt's first year to get in.
Just real quick while we're on it, and we can move on if we need to, but just a few people who are on that. Oh, Luke Kuechly was on the list this year. Yep. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. But in 2027, it looks like Adrian Peterson, Antonio Brown, Richard Sherman, Gronk, Alex
Eli
Mack.
might not get in for a little while.
Cam, Andrew Whitworth, he's a Hall of Famer. Ben Roethlisberger, probably a Hall of Famer. It's just crazy. But I think 2027 might be the year Eli gets in, but I'm pretty sure he's not getting in next year.
No, I don't think he gets in next year. Yeah. I don't think he was snubbed, but yeah. No, it's gonna be. It might be a little bit.
One more, and I'll leave. And we'll leave it. 2028. Tom Brady, J.J. Watt, Matt Ryan, A.J. Green, Devin McCourty.
Oh,
Right
those
now.
are that might be your Hall of Fame class right there. I mean, that might be it right there. So
So,
if we look at the
so if he
2028,
doesn't get a 27, it's 29.
no, yeah, or shoot. Well, we got to look at who's after that.
No kidding.
Next up on buy or sell. So the Eagles, like I said, opened up as Super Bowl favorites next year for Super Bowl 60. God,
Yeah.
it's hard to believe there's been 60 Super Bowls. But buy or sell with Kellen Moore leaving, the Eagles can make it back to the Super Bowl next year. They could be the next repeat champions.
You know, well, I told you, you know how I feel about Sirianni, but it'd be curious to see who he brings in as an offensive coordinator.
I can see him promoting.
Yeah. So right now, I would buy it. Right now, I
don't know that the offense is going to change much. I don't know whoever he brings in.
Why would it?
Yeah, why? Why would it? If nobody can stop Saquon Barkley,
Yeah.
I don't see why would it. And Vic Fangio, I think it's been known around the league that he's a much better defensive coordinator than he is a head coach.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of those guys are going to be leaving that defense anytime soon. I believe Howie Roseman is such a good GM. He's got those guys locked up, and the cap space is not like terrible for them either. So if they need to start restructuring or bring someone else in, they can.
Yeah.
But if they're able to keep this team together, I could see it happening.
Like, who's going to scare them though? Like out of the NFC, you would assume the 49ers are going to bounce back. One would think, because that's a winning organization.
Detroit gets healthy.
Yeah, if Detroit gets right, I do think no matter who Minnesota has at quarterback, I think they're going to step back, take a step back. Then you look at the NFC South.
Nobody there.
South, sorry. No one there really scares you. Tampa Bay, maybe, but even then.
I think if I'm Philly, the teams that I might be kind of keeping an eye on is Detroit and Washington.
Yeah. I think as long as Washington keeps Cliff Kingsbury.
Maybe Chicago. Because I want to see what Ben Johnson does with that team.
Yeah.
Because if he can get Caleb Williams right, they've got talent. You still got DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. DeAndre Swift is still on that team. They really just got, it's like we said with the Chiefs, if they can get the offensive line looking right and maybe fix a few things on defense, then the Bears could do something. I believe they got to fix a little bit on their cap situation. So it might not be like a 1-year turnaround, but if they can take if they have a 2-year plan in place, maybe they could look at scaring the Eagles. But if I'm looking at next year, Washington and Detroit.
Yeah, I think the really the main two as of right now. And like I said, I mentioned the first team I mentioned, San Francisco, simply because they have a winning organization. Other than that, I think you have to put the Eagles as the favorites to go back to the Super Bowl. I don't see why you wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, they're the odds-on favorite, and depending on what happens during this offseason, I don't see anyone really standing in their way.
Yeah, I think in the division, well, seeing what happens at Washington, but it's theirs to lose right now.
Yep.
And then whatever happens in the playoffs happens, but yeah, they're the favorites.
Do you think they could be the first repeat NFC East champions in like 20 years? I can see it happening if this team stays
sure. Because it ain't gonna be Dallas.
No. Sorry.
And not the Giants.
No, definitely not the Giants.
So it'd have to be Washington, but right now, I think they'd repeat as division champs.
I think they've got the best shot at doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
Real quick, we're going to step aside and say thank you to our sponsor real quick, and then we're going to come back and finish it up with the rest of the Extra Point Awards.
The Extra Point with Ryan Justice is sponsored by The Phone Medic. For the best in cell phone, tablet, or laptop repairs, The Phone Medic is the only choice for you. The Phone Medic also offers gaming PCs and laptops for both gamers and everyday users. Visit one of the 3 Phone Medic locations in Amarillo, Canyon, and their new location in Lubbock today.
We're back with the extra point, and now we gave out some of them last week. It's time to give out the rest of them. The extra point awards here on the season finale of the extra point. Thank you guys for staying up late with us. If you guys watched the Super Bowl, you saw the Eagles win and become Super Bowl champions for the second time. It's been a long time coming for that organization too, but we're handing out the extra point awards, and we start off with the award for biggest trade. We had some trades come in, but I'm also looking at not just the impact of the trade, but how this trade got people talking. And to me, call me biased, call me a homer, call me whatever. To me, the biggest trade this year that happened was Stephon Diggs to Houston.
It wasn't Luka to the Lakers?
That's wrong.
Oh, that's right.
That might be the most lopsided trade. I don't think there was a lot. I mean, we're still banking on the Deshaun Watson trade as being the most lopsided trade right now.
Man. I think this is the one that like Houston needed. I think this is probably the most impactful, biggest trade, I guess. I think this gave CJ Stroud another weapon, like someone to depend on, and for him to grow. And so I don't know if yes, I think this is the biggest, I agree with you. This probably is the biggest trade for this season. At least that comes to mind. But it's going to be its impact is going to be felt for seasons to come.
Yeah. If Diggs stays with Houston.
Yes.
I think they didn't realize, I think as far as in terms of like the trade itself, I didn't see this one coming. And for what the Texans gave up for him too, because they gave up a second, I believe, to get him.
Yeah.
As far as his impact on the field goes, I feel like he was the reliable one for CJ, whereas you wanted Nico to be the big play guy. When you think about what this Houston offense could have been when they had Nico and Diggs and Dell and Mixon and Stroud all on the field together, they were 2-0. But we didn't get injuries, and then, of course, this offensive line being what it was, we didn't really get to see what this could have been. And I feel like, especially with Tank Dell looking like he might be out for next season as well, I feel like bringing Diggs back. I know he's 31. I know he's coming off a torn ACL, but he's been relatively healthy for the majority of his career. And by the time training camp starts, I would imagine he should be good to go with the rehab of that ACL. So I think he comes back, and we begin to really feel like what this trade could do for this team.
More times than not, I'm not keen on keeping receivers, over the age of 30. But I think given the circumstances with Dell being out for next season, this is kind of like, hey, we got to bring him home. We have to keep him here. Like I don't want to say under no circumstances, but we're gonna be a lot better off if he's here.
Well, if you sign him, I was looking at some figures today. If you sign him, you save $7 million on the cap. And right now, the Texans have just under 5.
Yeah,
just under 5, so they need it.
Yeah. So he would need to come back.
I don't know about doing it long term. I don't know about doing it more than 2 years, but definitely sign him to at least a 1-year deal.
Yeah, like a 1-year rental, no more than 2, like you said.
Well, that's what he was supposed to be this year. That's why they voided the rest of his years and put it all on this year. And he was supposed to be a 1-year rental to see, okay, do we want to keep him around long term? Because of course, all the baggage that followed him from Buffalo, but he had none of that this year. He had none of that this year. But that to me was the biggest trade this year for the season. Now we move on to our coach of the year. This one was hard to pick because there were several guys that took some teams that you didn't think were going to do anything. But the one that was the biggest surprise to me because of what he did with a quarterback that you didn't think that he was going to get much out of, especially with the situation and how they drafted with the quarterback that they did drafted. To me, coach of the year has to go to Kevin O'Connell. I never thought I would have Sam Darnold's name in the conversation for MVP. but yet we did. At certain times this year, we did. And a lot of that had to do with Kevin O'Connell.
Like watching the Vikings this year, like you see them go off with the start they had, like their first 4 games, and you thought, okay, like that's cool. Like, oh, like, um, they're playing well. Like they're doing their thing. Sam Darnold, some sort of little redemption story, and like here's your month to be like, hey, like I'm still here, guys. But they kept winning. They kept winning. Kevin O'Connell made it work with him. I'm not saying Sam Darnold's bad or an awful quarterback. I just don't think he's been given a fair shake at his stops. So, but they trusted him, said, hey, let's make it work. And you saw what happened this year. I mean, they're playing for the number 1 seed the last week of the last game of the regular season.
Yep. And the division. It wasn't just
and the division, yeah. And so it wasn't like how do I say it? To be playing in those type of games that late into the season, that has to mean something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the case could have been made for Dan Campbell, but ultimately,
same with Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn,
who I think did win Coach of the Year.
I think ultimately, like, I wouldn't mind giving it to Kevin O'Connell, but I think, I probably would have gone with him given the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like with the situation that the Vikings were in, losing Kirk Cousins, your first round pick goes down in training camp with torn ACL, and now you're left with Sam Darnold, who has had a lot of questions about him, to turn around and be where you were. That had a lot to do with Kevin O'Connell, and I had to commend him for that. I know the last two games didn't go as well,
right?
But yeah, I had to give it to Kevin O'Connell. Now we move on to our defensive player of the year. So the actual defensive player of the year for the NFL was Patrick Surtain. Patrick Surtain, if I can speak tonight. I promise I haven't had too many of those Michelob Ultras. But Patrick Surtain won. For me, again, totally not biased. But when I look, I'm not trying to throw any bias in here, but when I look at how they played and the impact they had on the game, especially for some of the things that he came into, his first healthy season where he was able to play almost every game. For me, defensive player of the year has to go to Derek Stingley. There were just some things that he did to other quarterbacks and made other quarterbacks do that were just completely throwing them off their game plan. He was part of he's part of the reason you had Jared Goff throwing a 5 interception game. Josh Allen only completing 9 of his passes. Tua Tagovailoa, who was coming back when a Dolphins team was kind of streaking and making him look silly, making Justin Herbert look awful in the playoffs in a game that everyone had the Chargers winning. Derek Stingley's impact in the secondary, and he's eligible for a huge extension this offseason, I think, to me, had him as the best defensive player this year.
I will say, I remember whenever he came into the league, even before then, when I saw he got drafted by the Texans, I thought, oh boy, because I know how talented he was, or that he is. Like, I remember whenever he was at LSU as a true freshman, strapping Jamar Chase, strapping him, and so seeing him like do as well as he's done in the league, I'm happy to see him do as well as he's done, because I've seen it, so his impact for the Texans is noted. It's clear to see. I don't have a problem with Surtain winning the award. I don't. But a case can definitely be made for.
I mean, I just feel like, I don't have a problem with him either. But I think when you see him lock down Tyreek Hill the way that he did, or when he's when he's part of the reason that you've got Josh Allen, who won the MVP, when you hold the MVP of the league to 9 passes, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that they just can't get around Derek Stingley. I think the whole Derek Stingley Sauce Gardner conversation is put to bed. Like, I don't think there's any doubt there. Anyone that wants to bring up Sauce Gardner versus Derek Stingley, okay, go look at what Derek Stingley has done, and then go look at what Sauce Gardner's done the last 2 years. It's vastly different. So,
well, I mean, in notable matchups, I want to say with Surtain against, I'm pretty sure it's against Jamar Chase, and I want to say DK Metcalf. He held them to 3 catches or less, something ridiculous. Yeah. But nevertheless,
No, Surtain had a great stretch.
Yeah.
What irks me is that I don't think Stingley was even considered in this. I think it was Surtain and 2 other people, and Stingley wasn't one of them.
No, I believe the case could have been made for him.
Yeah,
but I mean, I don't think he was going to win it anyways.
But then again, you had 3 people who were voting that put Justin Herbert above Joe Burrow on their MVP ballot. So I mean, that's just how the league votes, I guess.
Yeah.
Offensive player of the year. So like I said, I was going to mention this. I felt like I think he came in second for the MVP voting, and it was close. If Saquon Barkley hadn't have had the year that he had, I feel like he would have been almost a lock for our MVP, without giving too much away. But my offensive player of the year is Lamar Jackson. I'm not gonna lie, you guys know that over the last few years I have not been the biggest Lamar Jackson fan, but these last 2 years he's had with Todd Monken, I feel like has really tapped into what Lamar Jackson needed to be for this league.
I'm very surprised you brought Lamar Jackson in this, because I know how I know what you've said about him. And obviously nothing bad, just as you see him as a quarterback.
Yeah.
But I think this year, you saw his work throwing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone knows he can run for days. Everyone knows that. But this year, well, I'm just talking about this season. It was just different, and a very strong argument could have been made for him winning the NFL MVP. A very strong argument, but to see
first quarterback to throw for over 4,000 yards and run for over 900. And I feel like having a bona fide running back like Derrick Henry, who could be the center of an offensive game plan, really helped with his ability to throw.
For sure, right? I mean, definitely. Having him and King Henry in the backfield is going to help out a whole lot. It gives them another problem that Baltimore Ravens give defenses. So that right there that wasn't obviously that wasn't a trade. At least I don't think it was it.
No, it was free agency. It was one of the biggest signings. I don't think he was. I mean, if Saquon hadn't have done as well as he did, Derrick Henry would probably have won my biggest addition for this year.
Yeah, he's you see the difference him evolving as a passer, and just from my point of view, it's great to see.
Yeah,
because he's had his critics, but they're not as loud now.
No. A lot of them got silenced, including this one. Yeah, a lot of them got silenced.
Wasn't trying to put names out there, but here.
No. Hey, I put this one right here in the lower part of your screen. Well, we ended last week with the Factory of Sadness Award going to the New York Giants, who very much well deserved it. And I think tonight it even stings a little bit more. But now we reach the top of the mountain. Our MVP of the league for this year won a Super Bowl tonight. My MVP of the league for this year is Saquon Barkley. In the sense that I don't know that the Eagles reached the Super Bowl without him. I don't know if the Eagles are even in the position they are without Saquon Barkley. We could have been looking at the Washington Commanders winning the division had he not gone to the Eagles. I don't know that he would have had this. I think the situation he was in was a lot better than any of the other teams that he could have gone to. But the fact that had he not sat out of that Week 18 game, that he would have broken the all-time rushing record in a single season. And then the fact that this team just went where he went. And I feel like to me, if we were looking at this as not a quarterback award, Saquon Barkley wins it for me.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you there because, like, he was so impactful for that team, and I don't think we're being a prisoner of the moment because the Eagles just won a Super Bowl.
No, I did this before the
season. It was clear to see from week 6 on. I think what stood out to me, and maybe I don't know if it was actually his performance, but the fact that Philadelphia went into Baltimore and dominated them the way that they did earlier in the season, probably towards the halfway point, maybe a little bit past the halfway point, how they went into Baltimore and they just shut it down. And like I said, I don't recall if it was Saquon specifically that just brought it home for them, but it was almost like, okay, like something's going on at Philadelphia. And so whenever they start at that point, people were realizing, hey, Saquon's doing his thing. You know, like we weren't expecting this. And maybe he was doing that prior to, but because you got to remember, like from week 6 on, they only lost 1 game.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that they were able to keep it on the ground with Saquon Barkley. And the fact, he breaks open, opening drive of a game, and you hand it off to him one time, and he breaks off a 60-yard run for a touchdown, just easily, just like that. And you saw that multiple times this year with Saquon Barkley.
The Eagles kept it simple.
Yeah.
And that's probably more Sirianni. I don't want to say brilliance, but him realizing like what he has at Saquon. And that right there is just that he let me just stop there. Yeah, I think your top of the mountain MVP is the appropriate one.
Yeah. No, yeah, Saquon Barkley winning the MVP. He came in 3rd in the MVP voting, but yes, to me, Saquon Barkley is my MVP of the league for this year. Well, that does it, guys. Again, in case you were under a rock, the Eagles are your Super Bowl champions this season. We've got the offseason starting in about a month with the new league year. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of news and everything popping up. But that will do it for the Extra Point for this season, guys. We will be back probably around right before the Hall of Fame game is when we will have. Don't need that spam bot. Thank you. There we are. Hunter, thank you. Definitely going to be streaming again soon. You guys might see me derping around on some video games. Go Helldivers. We will try to be back right around the time the Hall of Fame game comes up and gets started previewing that, getting you set for the new season with our division breakdown. Andy should be back. I'm sure the stomach flu won't last that long. And I'll have a new little addition to the family for coming up. So we'll be, you might see a very tired me breaking down some football for you guys. Curtis,
I think we will see a more tired you.
Yeah, I think we will. I think we probably will be like, so if I slur my words next season, I promise I'm not drunk. I'm just tired. But yeah, man, Curtis, man, thank you for joining in tonight, man. Always love having you come on the show.
I love coming on, and Ryan, you're doing a great job with the Extra Point. I really look forward to listening to what you have to say, and I look forward to coming back on in the future. Keep up the good work. Congrats on the new one coming in, and enjoy it.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And hey, want to say again, thank you to our sponsors, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. We will be, again, we really want to do a live show from on location. I'm going to be trying to working with Old Tascosa Brewing Company to go closer, and I'm going to see if I can hang on to this iPad so we can raffle it off maybe week 1 of the season. Guys, I'll be sending out information for anyone who wants to sponsor the Extra Point with Ryan Justice. I will be sending out sponsorship packages here soon, letting you guys know, hey, there is a way you can get your business on this show and promote it and work closely with us, like our sponsor, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. So for the final time this season, for Curtis Brown, I am Ryan Justice. Till next season, guys, goodbye. Good night.